Hey everyone, this is Paul Gale from paulgalenetwork.com, and thank you for joining me today for video game news. It is October 4th, 2021, and these are the top stories of the day. To kick things off, I mentioned previously that Nintendo and BlackMilk Clothing would once again be teaming up, and that this time it would be a crossover with The Legend of Zelda. And here we have our first look. They mentioned that it will go on sale next week on Tuesday, the 12th of October, and here we see the model wearing one of the items of clothing that's going to be made available. It looks like it's a romper or some kind of short overall set, and it's Legend of Zelda map themed. Pretty cool. There are a couple of other things that we see here, but the full line will be shown off, next week. Here we have the Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild inspired art on the back of a jacket, and you could make out some small details in here, so there's a little bit more to it than just plain white, but it looks nice. And underneath it she's wearing some type of Sheikah slate or some other type of a Sheikah inspired dress that's black and blue. My wife was a fan of the Super Mario collaboration that they had with BlackMilk Clothing last year, and we had a few items that we purchased, so those are pretty cool. Here we have a closer look at this jumpsuit or whatever it's called. I'm not entirely familiar with all of the names of various women's clothing, but yeah, if you know what this is called exactly, let me know. But pretty cool, looks nice. Of course, BlackMilk and Nintendo teamed up in addition to Mario in the past with Animal Crossing and Pokemon. So yeah, if you are interested in these items or what else they have to show off, stay tuned for next Tuesday as we'll probably look at more. Even if you're not interested in the clothing necessarily, if you go to blog.blackmilkclothing.com, you could receive 100 free My Nintendo Platinum points just by putting in your email address and saying that you're interested in receiving more information. So that's kind of cool too. Let me know what you think. All right, moving on in video game news. This is coming to us from Iconic Studios. It's a Street Fighter V Ryu figurine, and I'm going to push play on this little 1-minute trailer. I saw it earlier, and I thought, I got to talk about this today. This is pretty cool. So it's not a statue, but it is statue-like in that it is a 1/6 ratio figurine, high quality, and it comes with a couple of head sculpts. You'll see it also comes with different hands and whatnot, including a Hadouken fireball. Yeah, there you go. Energy effect accessory. It's available for pre-order now, and they give a little bit of a tease soon. Street Fighter V's Ryu design. I like it. Here's the tease I was talking about. In development, pending approval. Ken, not bad, right? So I could pause it there, but actually I have this set up here. This is over at the actual website. The prototype shown. Final build might be a little bit different, but it is $290, $289 specifically. You get Ryu with his belt, a little stand, a couple of different feet, different head sculpt, several different hands to go along with the Hadouken. You could put him in position. His bag that he's known for carrying around over the years in the Street Fighter series. And yeah, it's a 1/6 collectible figure. One of the things that I think is interesting about this is the articulation, because you don't see any joints. So it's all very carefully wired out inside so that you could be able to move him around from his fighting pose to a Hadouken pose to a Shoryuken pose, a blocking pose, get him ready for a Tatsumaki Senpukyaku, and put his arms up, put a different face on him. Like, there's a lot that you could do with it. It's actually really cool. I don't know if they give off the exact height, like if it's a 12-inch tall figurine or what exactly, but Let's see. I don't see that at the moment, but it should be over a foot tall, I imagine. Expected shipping is Q2 to Q3 of 2022. So you're going to get this about a year from now. Well, maybe a little less than a year, technically, depending. And that's pretty neat. So let me know if you are interested in this. The price tag is kind of steep, but if you want to get into Polystone statue collecting, but the price tag of like $500, $600 items is a little steep, a little ambitious, and they're actually just a little bit too big for your entertainment center. But you want something more than just an amiibo. Not to knock amiibo, I have plenty of them, and I love them. But you want to have something else on display. And of course, most importantly, you happen to like Ryu, you happen to like the Street Fighter franchise. This looks pretty nice, as you'll be able to pose it, take up a little bit of space in your room, but not too much. It's a very small footprint. The base is, pretty small in circumference. I think this is a cool way to go. I'm probably going to check it out myself. All right, finally today, it's the reason why I'm wearing my Super Smash Bros. Shirt. Because it's the last reminder that tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. Pacific time, 10 a.m. Eastern, and we have, of course, the other wide spectrum of time zones, so make sure that you are paying attention to where you are at in correlation with Pacific or Eastern's 7 and 10 respective, so you could make sure that you're live streaming this, watching it. Mr. Sakurai is going to give the final presentation for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. It's kind of a big deal. He even went on Twitter and said, please, whether you're a Smash Brothers fan or not, if you're just a fan of video gaming, please check out this presentation. It's 40 minutes long. It feels like it's pretty significant, and it's going to be kind of a love letter to fans. That's what the whole Smash Brothers franchise has been and has really turned into in the last 22 years, has been a love letter from Nintendo to fans. To Nintendo fans and then to just video game fans in general, right? We started this journey together back in 1999 on the Nintendo 64, where we had a relatively small roster, but of notable Nintendo characters. No third-party folk at the time. Mario, Luigi, some unlockables, Captain Falcon, of course Jigglypuff and Pikachu, Samus Aran. We had a new boss in Master Hand, stages from Mario games, Zelda, having Link in the game with Donkey Kong and, some older characters like Ness that, aren't as popular. Taking popular big characters, lesser known characters, giving them all stages, having a great move set, really started something huge. Of course, the game just got more and more refined over the years. When we got to Super Smash Bros. Melee, at that point, those were some great days for us, and that's when the rumors of, Sonic is going to be in the game, and you can actually unlock him if you do the following. If you're old enough to remember, those were some pretty cool rumors back in the day that Electronic Gaming Monthly was known for having. And, that was a pretty exciting time. I have fond memories of Super Smash Bros. Melee. Of course, I've had different main characters over the years from different franchises, going from Samus in the original Super Smash Bros. To Roy in Smash Melee, to Solid Snake in Brawl, and Bowser in Super Smash Bros. For Wii U and 3DS. And then to this date, since Super Smash Bros. For Wii U and 3DS, that version of Bowser is similar to how he plays in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. He has once again crossed over and has remained my main character in Smash Ultimate. But great lineup, It's been a awesome journey. It's kind of hard to believe that once the new fighter on the block, when I was a huge fan of Street Fighter back in the day, playing Street Fighter, liking Mortal Kombat and Fatal Fury, Art of Fighting, different fighting games of the generation before, and then Smash Bros. Being the new kid on the block. New in the sense of how it played and a new fighting game, but obviously with iconic characters. It was cool and different. I'm used to playing X-Men versus Street Fighter, and that was the big game of the late 90s in terms of crossover, kind of. And here we had Smash Brothers that was still internal Nintendo, right? But it wasn't just a Mario fighting game, it was all of these other Nintendo characters that were fighting. So that's what made it special. By the time we got to Brawl, I'll never forget that moment. I was at E3 that year. The Brawl trailer came out, and we got Solid Snake in the game, Sonic the Hedgehog in the game. Talk about iconic moments. Things that you'll never forget about. I remember talking with my friends at Nintendo, Rich Amtower and Nate Bildorf at that E3 in particular, way back in like 2006, about our hype levels, where they knew what was going to happen. They knew what was going to be shown off at that year's E3, including that Smash Brothers Brawl trailer, but how to keep tight-lipped. But when we got to speak afterwards, we had a lot of fun discussing it, and memorable moments, definitely. By the time we got to Ultimate, the series had to just explode. I think that, for Wii U and 3DS, that really kind of set the scope of just how far they're willing to go with getting in Cloud, a character that had very little representation on the Nintendo family of systems. Outside of Final Fantasy Theater Rhythm, Cloud himself wasn't in Final Fantasy VII on a Nintendo platform. Not till later on Nintendo Switch that you could download FF7 on eShop, right? So to get Cloud in there, and Ryu from Street Fighter. And they had the fan poll voting, which was giant at the time. Nintendo had this massive poll that existed where you entered your submissions all around the world. They took people into consideration. And of course, Bayonetta was that fan voted in character, further cementing Bayonetta with Nintendo, because Bayonetta, the original game, came out on Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3, but Bayonetta 2 was a Wii U exclusive, Nintendo funded, brought over Bayonetta 1 as well. Now they're developing Bayonetta 3, Platinum Games that is, but Nintendo funding once again. And having Bayonetta and Super Smash Bros. For Wii U and 3DS, and then Ultimate, just further cementing that legacy. Of course, getting characters like Min Min from a new IP, that was cool. Plenty of new Fire Emblem characters. Whether people think it's too much or not, having Byleth from a popular title, the most popular not Final Fantasy, the most popular Fire Emblem game, the most successful in Three Houses, that was pretty significant. Of course, you'll never forget when Simon Belmont and Richter Belmont were introduced. Kazuya from the last reveal at E3. The giant wow moment of E3 from a couple of years ago in Banjo-Kazooie. I'll never forget that. I was live streaming that one and just had a blast with that. Reaction just knocked me out of my chair, almost literally, just couldn't believe it. Sephiroth, another huge one. It's been great. When did you think that Minecraft's Steve would enter in Super Smash Brothers? So this has been a real sign of devotion in many ways, of making this the ultimate fighting game. Some people don't consider it a fighting game and think of it more of a party game or a party fighter, but at the end of the day, it is a fighting game. It just plays differently than a lot of typical fighting games. But then, again, to extend beyond that thought, a lot of fighting games feel different from another. Soul Calibur doesn't feel like Street Fighter, does it? It's a very different fighting game experience. But people don't say, oh, it's just a 3D fighter, not a real fighter like a 2D fighting game. No, there is no real fighting game anymore. There's 2D, there's 3D, there's different components within that. And Smash Brothers, it is a fighting game. Just different. But like I said, everything's different eventually. Or at least should be, because that's what helps video games expand, right? Makes audiences bigger, attracts more people. The amount of stages this game has received, the updates, the ability to play with friends online, all of the Mii costumes, that's another big deal. This game technically has Cuphead in it. Some of the Mii costumes, like Dante, for instance, are the character's skin, hair wraparound, but you can see your Mii character in it. Some of them, like Cuphead, as I mentioned, no, it just fully turns you into that character. Of course, the move set is what you make your Mii fighter, but for all intents and purposes, you're bouncing around on screen as Cuphead. Others, like I said, with Mega Man's Zero, that's a Mii that you could clearly see in a costume, but still you could make tons of different Mii faces and pretty accurately represent what these original characters were supposed to look like. The game's been awesome when it comes to stages, music, the amount of licenses that had to go into making this a thing is just impressive, because every title that's represented from every company has music, has its own character's individual stage. Each character is finely tuned to work with everyone else so that no one is completely overpowered. You could dominate and win if you get good with anyone, which is the makings of a good fighting game, I think. And the move sets have a lot of time and just thought that went into them. Mr. Sakurai has done a tremendous job. I met him a few years ago at E3 and was able to speak to him very briefly, but he was very nice, so I appreciate that moment, and I think that's a cool part for me to be able to add to the hype for this. When I get to meet creators of video games and I see them in the real world and have a positive reaction with them, it just makes me that much more of a fan of their product, because I like the game, I like the characters. I have my passion from childhood or nostalgia from teenage years or whatever, but then I also get to meet the creator. I get to meet the people working on it, and I'm a fan of this online persona from them, but then I see them and that they're legit, genuine folks. Like, oh, that's cool. I'm just wishing for you to succeed that much more. I hope that Mr. Sakurai gets to finish this project the way he wanted. We know that it's been a toll on his health at a few different points in the last several years, especially it seems between developing the game for Wii U and 3DS and then Ultimate. Hopefully he's able to take a break and, if he truly wants to make another Smash Brothers game, go for it. Maybe have a shared responsibility where you bring somebody else on board to make it a little bit less stressful. If you want to retire and this is your final game, all right, it'll be sad to see you go as a developer, but hopefully we see you around as a familiar face in the video game industry, popping up here and there. What I would like to see most personally from Masahiro Sakurai is him get to create his own game that he wants to build, whether it's a new IP entirely, some type of action adventure title, or revisiting Pit, bring Kid Icarus Uprising, and port it to Nintendo Switch. Have that be kind of a smaller project, but fine tune it for Nintendo Switch's HD Rumble, Pro Controllers, Joy-Cons, make it work, and then follow that off with a sequel, and maybe that's your last hurrah. I don't know. Honestly, I'm not a greedy gamer. Like I said, I come from the standpoint of I grew up in a time where the video game news was brought to us slowly in video game magazines, and then slowly with internet, and then this progressive jump, boom, 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 to where we get news every day. So I still appreciate the old stuff. I grew up in a time where we were playing 2D, no voice acting, evolved with sprites, appreciated early 3D, went from no rumble to rumble, went from couch co-op to be able to go online. So I still appreciate these basics of gaming. So that's kind of how I look at someone's work too. I am thankful for his involvement in the whole series. I'm appreciative of Nintendo's willingness to make all of these deals with Sega, Konami, Capcom, Square Enix, Microsoft. That's a big deal. No one has done this before. And it's something to be notable. Something to be noted, I should say, because it is a notable task. I hope one thing we get is that final super wide Super Smash Bros. Ultimate poster make that thing available to buy in a couple of different sizes to My Nintendo players, or maybe even have it, be able to be picked up this holiday season at Best Buy. Maybe there'll be a special edition package of Super Smash Bros. Ultimate that comes with the poster, but you could buy the poster separately, Speaking of this game's future, I would ultimately like to see this title make the jump and take advantage of the Nintendo Switch Plus, or the inevitable, probably, Nintendo Switch 2. And by that, I mean not a director's cut necessarily, or a remake or a remaster, just further optimized for upcoming hardware. Maybe it's going over the textures, because the game is already a nice looking title in 1080p, runs at 60 frames per second, isn't widescreen, even has a 3D mode that you could use with the Nintendo Labo VR. But what I mean is, okay, you could keep that 1080p and maybe bump it up to 1440 or 4K. You could keep that 60 frames per second and that widescreen format, but how many more textures can you put in the game? Because there was some little bit of a texture drop in some characters from Super Smash Bros. For Wii U to Ultimate. Character polygon models being of a higher level of quality, but the fidelity within, in terms of texture, a little bit lower. For instance, Donkey Kong's fur, Mario's overalls, Link's garb, chainmetal, and so forth. I wouldn't mind seeing this game, so that they don't have to make a whole other one right away, be up-resed, up-textured, so that it still runs just as well in 60 FPS, maybe even a little bit more clear, like I said, at 1440 or 4K, on future Nintendo hardware. Have it be the Ultimate Edition of it, where maybe a few years in, like I said, this isn't a right away kind of thing, but a couple of years in, this is the game that if you buy physically, you're going to get all of the content that you could possibly want. Every character thrown in, every Mii costume, stage, song, etc. All of the DLC included in it, and you're getting it at this higher level of visual fidelity. That would be pretty significant. If you bought the game digitally previously, or even physically, but bought digital things along the way, that would translate over into your new file, and there you go. You wouldn't have to buy everything all over again. Maybe in that case, it would be a small upgrade fee, And I think that's reasonable for how much the game gave you over the course of these few years with how many extra characters. If there's a final charge of X amount more, and it's including everything else, and just to have it up-resed, up-textured, people wouldn't complain too much. Well, then again, some people would still probably complain, because if you look at the state of the industry when, PlayStation or EA or somebody else charges more for an upgraded title, there are complaints, and some of it's justified. But I guess also some of it is based off of how old is the title that's getting this $10 souped up patch. Is it $10 more for Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 to be played in a higher level of quality on your Xbox Series X or PlayStation 5, in which the game just came out a year ago on your PlayStation 4 and Xbox One? Or is it, something that's like 4 years old, 5 years old at this point, that is giving you all the DLC that came along with the original base to be played and owned on the new hardware for $10, or to be bought independently if you missed out on it the first time? That's kind of what I'd like to see to make Super Smash Bros. Ultimate last a little bit longer. And then eventually, what's that next Smash Bros. Going to be going forward? Smash Bros. 6, if you will. And what direction will they take? Probably a smaller roster. Probably a lot of people will be cut. But you see, if they have an Ultimate version of Ultimate, they don't have to worry necessarily about the true successor for a little while longer. So it makes the impact of the successor feel that much more impactful, because it took a little bit longer to get to, and it allows this game's 25 million plus selling content to live more and potentially sell several more million copies to a new audience that maybe passed on it because now they have the ultimate version of it. That's just a little bit of a forward thought of what I'd like to see. I hope that tomorrow's presentation is awesome. I'm looking forward to who that final character is. I have my thoughts. Some are a little bit more realistic than others. I think that a fine character, maybe not for the last character slot, because I think the last character slot, it seems like it's got to be really impactful and an absolute shocker to end on this bang. Nintendo didn't just come up with this character a couple of months ago and that's why they're releasing it. No, they had more or less in line from the beginning when this DLC launched. Wave 1, Wave 2. What are these characters going to be post-game? From Piranha Plant to this character that's going to be shown off tomorrow. They knew. Maybe there were some small picks in between that weren't yet finalized, but for the most part, this stuff has been in development for many, many months. So, if Lara Croft from Tomb Raider was shown off previously, that would have been a big, awesome way to throw in a character in this 3-year journey. As a final character, even though Tomb Raider has its 25th anniversary, I don't know if it's as significant, especially with the lack of Lara Croft being on Nintendo platforms this generation or during the Wii U era. If you saw at an E3 making her way into Smash Bros. Ultimate, Lara Croft, and the following announcement, boom, the recent Tomb Raider trilogy is coming to Nintendo Switch later this fall, in addition to Lara Croft's appearance in the game. And that wasn't like the last character, but was, a few characters ago. That would have been a significant one. Somewhere around the time of Mortal Kombat 11's release on Nintendo Switch, get over here! And it shows Scorpion coming into Smash Brothers. That would have been another huge moment, but I don't know if finishing on Scorpion now has the same impact as it probably could have. Doom Slayer. If they had you enjoyed Doom on Nintendo Switch and, releasing soon, boom, Doom Eternal. And you have Doom Guy on Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Once again, these 3 characters kind of in between these last several, from the beginning to the end, before or after Banjo. One of those 3 would have been significant at that point. Still would, but I don't know if they would hold the final weight of who this is. I think this last one's got to be huge. It's also kind of why I don't think it's going to be, somebody like Ryu Hayabusa from Ninja Gaiden or Leon Kennedy from Resident Evil. You can make the argument that, Chris Redfield and folk from the RE franchise, they're also celebrating 25 years this year. But I don't know if it's quite as significant. So I'll leave you with kind of a final 4 and who I think would be significant enough and would probably have still some complaints out there, but hopefully not by too many, right? Crash Bandicoot, 25th anniversary of the character. He's not as significant or well known perhaps today as he was in the 90s when it was, PlayStation versus Sega versus Nintendo, Crash versus Sonic versus Mario. But Crash has held his own as a character in nostalgia and in people's minds and hearts. And as we saw, the Crash Bandicoot trilogy was very successful, came to Nintendo Switch, sold well. Crash Team Racing, successful on Nintendo Switch, sold well. Crash Bandicoot 4 just came out last year on Nintendo Switch, successful, sold well. Crash Bandicoot would be a big inclusion. For the current day, still pretty significant. From years past, very significant. As an overall thing of what Super Smash Bros. Ultimate embodies, bringing crazy characters from all across the industry together, gigantic, right? You'd have Mario versus Sonic versus Crash in one game. Huge get. Sora from Kingdom Hearts, very big. Sora was at the time, in his infancy, known as a PlayStation character, not owned by Sony, but those early Kingdom Hearts games were on PlayStation 2 and such. Kingdom Hearts games have gone to many platforms, from Chain of Memories to Game Boy Advance to the recent Rhythm titles on Nintendo Switch, Kingdom Hearts 3, a couple of years ago on Xbox One and PlayStation 4. So it's all over the place. It would be big because it's also Disney, and that's one more giant company. Like, there are a few companies that are as big or bigger than Nintendo, and Disney is one of them in terms of owning global IP and having that recognition. Now, Sora isn't as well known to the mass world as someone like Mickey Mouse, right? Or Buzz Lightyear, for instance. But within the gaming community, it comes from a strong franchise, one that has quite a big following, lots of music involved, lots of potential cameos from either Square Enix's original characters in Kingdom Hearts titles or Disney's staple of characters, which is another crazy thing to think of. Extra costumes for him? Do we see the Mickey Mouse ears in this? If it is Sora, what's the music and licensing going to be like for that game? What's the stage going to be like? Do you see Donald Duck and Goofy be a part of a final Smash? That also brings us potential Mii costumes. Like, that's huge. You got Cuphead and an old school Mickey fighting each other. I don't know if Disney wants that. I don't know if to Disney this is worth it. I think it's honestly an honor for anybody to make it as an assist trophy, like Shovel Knight, to an actual character like Bayonetta to be in this game. When I saw Terry Bogard, one of my old school fighting game characters make it in, and Kazuya, I was so stoked because this brought my favorite Street Fighter, Ryu and Ken. I got assist trophies in the background with Guile, for instance, from Street Fighter 2 as well, and these Tekken and Final Fight characters. And I've got some Virtual Fighter love going on because I have Akira in Mii format in his blockiness from Sega Saturn back in the day. So there's a lot. But I think that with Kingdom Hearts, you have a pretty good shot at Mii fighter costumes also being something notable and exciting. It's just whether or not it happens. And I think one of the last ones that I wouldn't be surprised too much if it was him was Master Chief. Master Chief technically is on Nintendo already, so he's both a video game character and a character that can be played thanks to being able to purchase Master Chief skin in Fortnite on Nintendo Switch. So you couldn't even say, well, he has nothing to do with Nintendo. Well, now he's in Fortnite, which is on a Nintendo platform, so Master Chief is a viable possibility. We've seen that Nintendo and Microsoft have worked well together with the Better to Be Played Together campaign, with Minecraft, Red and Green teaming up. Microsoft gives Nintendo shouts and props on Twitter publicly. Oh, we love the Legend of Zelda franchise. We see Phil Spencer with the Nintendo Switch in the background. Of course, we've got the 2 Ori games come over to Nintendo. We've got Banjo-Kazooie coming to the Nintendo Switch Online N64 service. Banjo-Kazooie and Minecraft's Steve and Co. already in Ultimate. So Master Chief would be big. It helps other games get more attention. Not that Halo Infinite needs any more attention, but it wouldn't hurt where, hey, you've got Master Chief from Halo coming to Super Smash Bros. Ultimate this November, right alongside on the Xbox Series 1 or Xbox Series X, S, and Xbox One platforms, Halo Infinite. Wow, that's pretty cool. You got a good stage. You've got some iconic music that's now, 20 years old pretty much. I'm not going to go into it, but that would be awesome. Getting some guitar. I said I wasn't going to get into it. Can't help it. I think that would be cool. Different colors, very workable for Master Chief. be awesome to play on that stage. Um, Having Master Chief versus Mario would probably be pretty wild to see, and something that back in 2001, when Nintendo GameCube came out, and a title that came out within its first couple of weeks was Super Smash Bros. Melee, and in 2001, Halo being created, and those two games coming out right alongside each other on their opposing platforms, both celebrating 20 years, that would be pretty wild to see, and something that you wouldn't think of back in the day. But like I said, it's an honor to be in Smash Brothers. Honestly, you could say, yeah, it makes Smash Brothers sales go up, but it also brings attention to your third-party character if you are lucky enough. So probably it works out that Nintendo's got to pay somebody to have the character in, or give them a percentage, perhaps favorable in the third party's company, for their individual DLC purchases per character. And there's a whole world involved in that, I'm sure. But Sora, Crash Bandicoot, Master Chief, I wouldn't be surprised if it's one of those three. I did say that I have a couple of others. I don't think it's going to be Waluigi. I also don't think it's going to be Geno from Super Mario RPG. To end on Waluigi, I don't know if it would be that significant, that monumental. To end on Geno, though beloved by many, he's quite far removed from his original Super Mario RPG debut. He's also a Mii character where he could fully load up that costume and almost look just like him. Mr. Sakurai did want him to be in it previously, but I don't think it's going to happen now. Like, this was 13 years ago, talking about, it would have been nice to have in Brawl, right? So I don't think that's going to be a thing. But who I think is a possibility, I'll go with my lesser of the two likely ones first. Impa. If they found a way how to make Impa a very significant playable character, or maybe not a playable character, maybe even, well, hard to say, but a significant character in The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 2, where she's an integral part of time travel, and you see her in her older self or younger self. She's got a wild moveset. She's got different costume swaps from Ocarina of Time, from even Hyrule Warriors, different looks of her over the years, from Skyward Sword, that really slick looking one. I think Impa as a character would be neat, as it would give Zelda some more representation, but I don't think that's going to happen necessarily. So my last one that I think is a possibility, but it almost seems too ambitious, is to have the 4 champions share one slot. And I'm talking Daruk, Mipha, Urbosa, and Revali, because not only are they very popular thanks to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild's monumental 22 million plus selling success, but also getting some more relevancy in the 4 million or so selling Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, and getting more backstory on them, and potentially even having a role, even though they're passed on, but having a role of some sort in Breath of the Wild 2. Maybe some time travel aspect, maybe some more memories. But the scope of a 4-in-1 character would be pretty big. Mithra and Pyra from Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is already pretty cool, even though they play, comparable overall. The 3 Pokemon occupying one slot is pretty significant, and that's as close as we get to this hypothetical champions idea. But there you've got, pretty distinct differences between Charizard and Ivysaur and Squirtle. But to play as Daruk, he would just look so different than any of the other Zelda characters currently there, and he would be a big guy like a Bowser or a King Dedede, King K. Rool. There's a lot that you could do with him. Revali as a flight character, I'm just picturing him and Falco Lombardi, and some type of fun interaction between the two. I don't know. Mipha, water character that moves throughout the stage. Urbosa with lightning attacks. That's a really cool thing. I would hope that nobody would complain if that was it. Because, not to say I think it's going to be, but if it's not a third-party character, I think it's got to be the champions because that's significant. Third party seems kind of bigger in some ways, but that champion idea really respects Zelda. The 35th anniversary of Zelda is Nintendo's own baby, so that you couldn't say, oh, there's nobody left in Nintendo's world that they could, do anything significant with. No, that's very much so not the case. You could bring more characters from F-Zero if you wanted. You could bring more characters from Punch-Out if you wanted. There are more baddies in the world of Mario and Metroid and Donkey Kong that you could incorporate into Smash Brothers before you truly run out of ideas. You could bring in folks from Advance Wars. If you want to go third party, well, we'll deviate for a second. You could talk about Phoenix Wright. Objection, bringing that into the game would be cool. Splatoon's got more possibilities. There's plenty of Nintendo IP characters that could make it in, but the most significant, the most impactful would be those 4 champions. And that would show that, hey, Nintendo's still got it. As a Nintendo game, without anyone else into consideration, we've still got it. But those are my really wild thoughts. I wonder if any of them are going to be correct. I could see any of them happening tomorrow. And if any of them happen, even though I kind of anticipated that one might be, I would still be blown away. As much as I'm thinking now, unless if I get leaked and there's some horrible spoiler that drops on the internet between now and tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. that shows off Master Chief with a thumb, and oh man, you ruined it. I really hope that I don't get spoiled this time. Of all the times that a spoiler can happen, don't let it be on this last one. We waited a long time for the finale, and here it is. You want to see it live and be there and be a part of history. It's pretty awesome if you're a gamer. It's pretty awesome if you're a Nintendo fan, if you're a Smash Brothers fan, right? Could somebody really unexpected drop in like Kratos from God of War? That's a pretty big get. Talk about somebody who technically is possible, but probably unlikely. I say technically possible because Kratos, like Master Chief, can be purchased as a character skin in Fortnite on Nintendo Switch. So as unlikely as he is, Kratos would be big. And that's kind of like the missing link. You can make the argument that, this game doesn't have a whole lot of Western developed characters in it, but it also doesn't have anybody from PlayStation in it, It's got Microsoft, it's got Capcom and Sega and Konami and, indie developer support even, which is terrific. But, no PlayStation. Kratos would be pretty wild. Ratchet and Clank would fit better, but then you've got a character that really hasn't been on a Nintendo platform in any capacity. Wouldn't it be crazy if they said, and coming along with him is the original Ratchet and Clank game on Nintendo Switch eShop. That's just so unlikely to happen. Saying it out loud makes me even kind of cringe sort of uneasily with that projection, but it's possible. It would be pretty cool. It would be pretty cool. They would fit as a really nice pair. And that's not even to say that they would only fit because, they were in PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale. But no, they'd fit because the characters themselves have a ton of moves, a ton of weapons. Yeah, they did work in that game, but I'm sure Mr. Sakurai would maybe look at it, see what they did, maybe take one or two elements for nostalgia's sake for people that liked that title, but really just make it his own character. And then you've got, a lot of representation from all over the industry, and with the voice actors contributing lines and a beautiful world. What a wild thing. Exciting. There is no wrong one. I don't think it's going to be a dud. Even if it's somebody that they showed off tomorrow, and it's not one of the dozen or so plus that I mentioned today, it's somebody else. Whether that somebody else is a monumental giant character that I did not see coming, which is, whoa, really epic. Like somehow, I was gonna say I didn't even mention Marcus Phoenix, but it was like a Marcus Phoenix. Like what? Like not even remotely thinking of that. Gordon Freeman, huh? Of course, now that I said them, now there are possibilities, right? Rash, Pimple, or Zitz from Battletoads, like a Killer Instinct character. Okay, Joanna Dark, right? Joanna Dark from Perfect Dark, Conquered Bad for a Day. These characters. Of course, now that I said them, they're a part of my video. But even if it's something like that, so out in left field, unexpected, I'm gonna be happy. If it's one of my top 4-ish, I'm gonna be very happy. If it's somebody that's on the smaller scale, like really, that was the final one? Huh. I kind of would have ended on, Banjo-Kazooie in that case, because I think that was the biggest, or something. Okay, but okay, cool. I'm still going to be happy because I respect Masahiro Sakurai. I respect Nintendo. I think that this is one of the best games ever made in terms of fun factor and how much you get out of it. From that base $60, you've got dozens of characters, dozens of stages, hundreds of songs, hours and hours worth of music to listen and to be able to play with, 8 people at once on the couch having fun, online mode, World of Light. Like there's so much into it in the base game that honestly everything else seems pretty appropriately priced, that you're paying little nuggets for new work being added into the game. So whatever it finishes off at tomorrow, I'm going to be cool with. I'm hoping for that top tier excitement, but it's going to be cool whatever. Wow, that was a lot of fun to get that energy out there. I'll end on this final note. If it's going to be somebody that I would say would be, how am I going to say this? Someone that makes sense in some regards, but kind of doesn't in others, would be if it were to be based off of a real character, if it was a playable character of Satoru Iwata. Satoru Iwata, was Nintendo's president for a number of years, passed away very sadly several years ago. And if this was kind of that final, touching moment of, spoke with family, talked greatly internally at Nintendo, and wanted to preserve the man in the most respectable way possible, even though he's in a fighting game, right? But by cementing that legacy forever, and that's the character, I don't know how people would take that. Some might say, oh, that's insensitive. Some might say, that's not a fighting game character. That's not a video game character. But a lot of people, I think a lot of Nintendo fans and people, journalists in the industry, would think, wow, that's a beautiful moment, So I would be totally okay. I'm okay with anybody, but I'd be very much okay and happy and, shocked and sentimental if it was Mr. Satoru Iwata as the final character. And on that note, I guess there is one other technical character that could be in, which it probably won't, but is Paul Gale, me, because I am technically a video game character in Capcom's Street Fighter 4. So if there's another character that is a video game character but based off of a real person, that would be me. But let's leave that one as a joke. But talk about Mr. Iwata as a potential real candidate. And yeah, we're not going to get somebody like Goku or Superman or Ninja Turtles or Power Ranger, Batman, Spider-Man, Wolverine, but those are probably never going to be a reality anyways due to the nature of them not being traditional video game characters from their start. But I thought I had to mention those names because they've been significant enough and have popped up enough throughout time that it's worth mentioning in this kind of final farewell prediction video. And yeah, I went on longer than I thought with this specific portion, bringing this into video game news territory, or video game talk territory, I should say, specifically for the Smash Brothers portion. But that was a lot of fun. Thank you for watching with me. If you made it all to the end, all the way to the end, I appreciate it. Let me know your final thoughts on Super Smash Bros. Character. Who do you think it's going to be? Who do you want it to be? What you think of my ideas? And yeah, I'll see you all tomorrow morning. This is Paul Gale signing out. Hope you have a good one. Bye.